My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 31 years old. I live in a Chicago suburb in a house I inherited from my parents. I have a good job, a decent car, and a few friends who think I'm normal. Sometimes I even believe it. I killed my sister when I was 13. No, that's not it. I didn't kill her in the way people understand the word. I didn't strangle her, drown her, or throw her down the stairs. I did something worse. And now no one, including me, can tell exactly where I end and she begins. I'm writing this confession because I can't stay silent any longer. Because the lie I've built for 20 years is starting to crumble. And because last night I saw her face in the mirror again. But let's start from the beginning. So you understand. So you see how an ordinary girl from an ordinary family can turn into a monster. Or maybe she always was. I was born first. Rose arrived 2 years later. Our mother loved flowers, so she named us Claire and Rose. Light and dark. That's what she called it. I was light, blonde, blue-eyed, calm. Rose was dark. Chestnut hair, brown eyes, and a fiery temper. Mom loved Rose more. I always knew it. Not because she said so, she would never admit it, even to herself. But I saw how her eyes warmed when Rose ran into the room. How she laughed at her jokes, forgave her pranks, bought her gifts just because. I had responsibilities. I was the eldest, I had to take care of my sister, help around the house, do well in school. And Rose just needed to be herself. I didn't blame Rose. Honestly. She didn't ask to be loved more. She simply was herself, bright, lively, and charming. She had lots of friends at school. Boys wrote her notes, teachers forgave her for being late. And I was a shadow. A smart, cozy, unnoticed shadow. We shared one room. 2 beds on opposite walls, 1 desk, 1 closet. I remember how at night when Rose fell asleep I would look at her and think, what if I had been born second? What if I had been loved for nothing, not for grades and obedience? These were just thoughts. Back then, just thoughts. Everything changed when I was 11 and Rose was 9. We were playing in the garden. Rose was running around the old oak tree. I was sitting on the porch reading a book. She called out, "Claire, look," and climbed the tree. I didn't even look up. She was always climbing, always falling, always crying, and Mom was always comforting her. I heard the snapping of branches, then a dull thud. Rose lay on the ground, motionless. I approached. She was breathing but unconscious. Blood was seeping from her cut eyebrow. I looked at her and suddenly felt something strange. Not fear, not anxiety. Silence. A complete, ringing silence reigned within me. I could have called for my mother. I could have run for help. Instead, I stood and watched. For a second, 2, 3. Then she opened her eyes and burst into tears. I ran to call my mother. Everything ended well. Rose escaped with a mild concussion and a scar above her eyebrow, which later became her signature. But that night I lay and thought about those 3 seconds. About how I didn't want her to get up. About how there was something inside me I didn't understand. For the first time I called it black to myself. The darkness slowly grew inside me like mold in a dark corner. I didn't notice it until it began to manifest itself. First, the little things. I accidentally spilled juice on her favorite dress. I forgot to wake her up on time and she was late for school. I lost her grade book with all the A's she wanted to show her mother. Every time I sincerely apologized. Rose forgave. She was generally forgiving. Mom said, "Rose has a kind heart." And I looked at that kind heart and thought it was too big. Too bright. Too alive. I wanted to extinguish it. By 13 I had learned to be invisible. Not in the sense that I wasn't noticed, I was noticed, but like furniture. Like good, comfortable furniture. Rose was the sun, I was the shadow. And I hated it. But I didn't hate Rose. That's important to understand. I didn't wish her ill. I wanted to be her. It all came together the summer I turned 13. My parents went to visit my grandmother for the weekend, leaving us alone. Rose was delighted we could do whatever we wanted. I was calm. I already knew what I was going to do. On Saturday evening we were sitting in her room. Rose was showing me her drawings. She loved to draw, she was quite good at it. Birds, flowers, trees. I looked at them and nodded. And then I asked, "Have you ever wanted to be me?" She looked surprised. "No. Why not? You're you. What if you could? What if we switched places?" She laughed. "Nonsense. We're sisters. We're almost the same." She didn't understand. She never understood. Because the sun doesn't understand what it's like to be a shadow. I smiled and said it was just a joke. That night, after she fell asleep, I took her diary. I knew where she hid it, under the mattress. I read every page, memorizing her handwriting, her words, her thoughts. Then I carefully put it back. The next day, I began writing in my diary in her handwriting. I practiced for hours until I achieved a perfect match. I didn't understand why I was doing it then, but the dark side of my soul knew. In the fall, when we started school, I started changing my appearance. Mom didn't notice because the changes were slow. I stopped pinning my hair back like I usually did and started wearing it loose, like Rose. I bought a sweatshirt exactly like hers and said I just liked the style. I started imitating her intonations, her laugh, her habit of biting her lip when she was thinking about something. Rose noticed it but ignored it. She thought it was just an act, imitating her little sister. Sometimes she'd laugh, "Claire, you've become my shadow." She didn't know how close she was to the truth. I waited. The opportunity presented itself in November. We went into the woods outside of town where we sometimes walked. Rose wanted to collect leaves for her herbarium. I agreed. We went deeper into the forest and I led her to a place where almost no one went. There was an old basement there. Abandoned, dilapidated, the remains of some long-lost house. I found it a few weeks ago while walking alone. Rose asked what it was. I said I didn't know and offered to take a look. He was always curious. She walked to the edge and peered into the dark pit. I stood behind her, my heart pounding in my throat. I didn't push her. I just waited. The ground collapsed. Rose screamed and disappeared into the darkness. I heard a dull thud, then silence. Then crying. I stood at the edge and looked down. It was dark. Very dark. "Rose." I called. "Claire, help. I fell. It's deep here." I remained silent. "Claire." I turned and went home. I came home, locked myself in our room and sat there until evening. I didn't cry. I just sat and stared at the wall. The darkness inside me was calm. It knew everything was going as planned. That evening my parents arrived. I told them that Rosa had gone for a walk and hadn't returned. That I'd looked for her but couldn't find her. Mom screamed and Dad called the police. The search began. They searched for 3 days. They combed the forest up and down but couldn't find the basement. I confirmed this by covering it with branches. I even showed the police the place where we used to walk, but I led them a different way. On the 4th day the search stopped. Rosa was declared missing. Mom cried for a month. Then she stopped. Life went on. I was left alone in the room that used to be ours. I rearranged the furniture and put away her things. Mom didn't mind. It hurt her to look at them. I started wearing her clothes. Her sweatshirts, her jeans, her t-shirts. I cut my long hair like hers. I dyed my eyebrows a darker color to match. Mom looked at me and cried. She said I reminded her of Rosa. I said it was just sadness that she was imagining things. But I knew the truth. I was becoming her. By spring, I was almost indistinguishable from Rosa in the photos. Same clothes, same haircut, same gestures. I even laughed like her. Mom got used to it. She stopped crying and began to see something of Rosa in me. Sometimes she called me by my first name. I didn't correct her. Dad didn't either. I went to school where Rosa was known and loved. I spoke with her voice, smiled with her smile, and no one noticed the change. The teachers would say, "Rose, it's so good to have you back." Even though she wasn't the one returning, I was. My name was Claire, but everyone called me Rose. First it was strange. Then I got used to it. And then I lost track of who I really was. Years passed. I graduated from high school as Rose Morgan. I went to college as Rose Morgan. I made friends named Rose who didn't know the real Rose had died in an abandoned basement. Sometimes I thought about that girl, Claire, my older sister. But she seemed alien to me. I looked at old photographs and didn't recognize myself. I remembered my childhood, but it felt somehow foreign, like I was watching a movie about someone else. My mother died when I was 20. Before she died, she took my hand and whispered, "Rose, my rose." I nodded and began to cry. I didn't know who I was crying for, her, myself, or that girl in the woods. My father outlived my mother by 5 years. We hardly spoke. He became an alcoholic and died alone. I didn't go to the funeral. I said I couldn't because of work. The truth is, I just didn't want to remember. I lived alone. I worked in an office, went to the gym, and occasionally dated men. The ordinary life of an ordinary woman. But at night, when I was alone in the dark, I heard a voice. "Claire." Quiet, distant, but distinct. "Claire, do you remember me?" I turned on the light and sat there until morning. 5 years ago, I bought this house. Old, big, with a garden. I thought a change of scenery would help me forget the past. But the past never forgets. The very first night, I woke up cold. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, afraid to move. And suddenly I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, cautious. Someone was walking through the house. I jumped up, turned on the light, and walked around every room. No one was there. The next night, the footsteps repeated. I lay awake, waiting. At exactly 3 o'clock, they started again. I followed the sound. It led to the basement. I opened the door and went downstairs. It was dark and damp. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and saw something white in the corner. I went over. It was a child's nightgown. Old, rotten. I picked it up and suddenly recognized it. It was Rose's nightgown. The same one she was wearing that day in the forest. I remembered it, pink with embroidered flowers. But how did it get here? I didn't bring it. I never took anything from my parents' house. I stood in the basement, clutching that rag, and suddenly realized I wasn't alone. I turned around. A girl was standing on the stairs. About 9 years old. Her dress was wet, her hair was dirty, her eyes full of darkness. She looked at me and smiled. "Hi, Claire. I've been waiting." I screamed and ran upstairs. I slammed the door, locked it, and sat in the living room until morning, turning on all the lights. In the morning, I went down to the basement. No one was there. Only a shirt lay on the floor. I burned it in the fireplace. But she comes every night. He stands on the stairs in the doorway in the corner. He watches and remains silent. Sometimes he smiles. Sometimes he whispers my name. I haven't slept for almost a month. I went to a psychologist. He said I have post-traumatic stress disorder and guilt. That this girl is a hallucination, a projection of my subconscious. He prescribed me some pills. I take them, but she doesn't go away. Last night she came closer. She stood by my bed and looked down at me. I could hear her breathing. Cold, wet. "You thought I was dead," she said. "But I didn't die. I was waiting." "What were you waiting for?" "To become me. To understand what it's like to be a shadow. To live someone else's life, wear someone else's name, smile someone else's smile. You wanted to be me, now you are me. I didn't want to kill you. You didn't kill me. You just left me there. It's worse. It's longer." I cried. For the first time in years. "Forgive me. It's too late. We're both here, you and I. In one body. In one life. You thought you'd erased me from your memory, but I was always here. In your head. In your dreams. In every minute of your life." She reached out and touched my face. A cold, dead hand. "You're mine now." I don't know how much time has passed. The days have merged into one long night. I don't leave the house. I don't answer the phone. The food delivered by the courier remains untouched by the door. She comes every night. He sits next to me, talks to me. He tells me about those days in the basement. About how she waited. How she called. How she realized I wouldn't come. How she slowly dissolved into the darkness. I listen and die with every word. This morning I looked in the mirror. And I didn't recognize myself. There she is. Rose. Her blonde hair had darkened, her eyes had changed from blue to brown. I ran my hand over my face. It wasn't mine. I realized she was taking me away. Slowly, piece by piece. Soon I would disappear completely. And only she would remain. The one I wanted to become. The one I killed.
I'm writing this so someone will know. So the truth won't die with me. My name is Claire Morgan. I killed my sister when I was 13. I left her to die in an old basement and took her place. I lived her life for 20 years. But she didn't die. She waited. And now she's come for me. I don't know what will happen when I finish writing. Maybe I'll just fall asleep and never wake up. Maybe they'll find me dead in the morning. Or maybe I'll disappear completely and only she will remain. But if you're reading this, know this. There are things worse than death. There are things worse than murder. The worst thing is when you stop being yourself. When your face becomes someone else's, your life becomes someone else's, your memories become lies. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want someone to know who I was, who I've become, and what's left of me. My name is Rose Morgan. I'm 29 years old. I found this notebook in the house I bought a week ago. The realtor said the previous owner disappeared under strange circumstances. She left all her belongings, documents, even her car. She just walked away and never came back. I don't know who Claire is or why she wrote about me, but when I read these pages, a shiver ran through me. Because I really did disappear as a child. They searched for me, but they couldn't find me. And then I returned. I remember only the forest and the darkness, and then the house and my mother who cried with happiness. I don't remember the basement. I don't remember leaving it. But I remember the smell of damp earth and the cold. And a voice calling my name. Thought it was a dream. Now I don't know. I finish reading and look in the mirror. A woman with brown eyes and dark hair looks at me. At my face. But suddenly, something bright flashes in the depths of her pupils. Something alien. I turn away and turn on the light. The house is quiet. Only the rain patters on the glass. But I think I hear footsteps. From above. Someone walking on the second floor. I won't go up there today. I won't go up at all. I'll take this notebook, leave the house, and go where there is no past. Where there are no forests. Where there are no basements. But I know it won't help. Because when I look at my hands, I see two pairs of fingers. When I close my eyes, I hear two voices. And when I say, I don't know who's speaking. Me or her. Claire Rose. The one who killed or the one who died. We're together now. Forever. And this is the most terrible punishment.